So I have coached a number of Olympians, some pretty high performers, and a bunch of really badass entrepreneurs over the years. And this is one of my favorite skills to train for, to sit down and work on with them, and to also utilize in my day-to-day activities. It is possibly the most powerful skill for manifesting a new reality, for becoming a new version of yourself, for stepping into your highest and greatest, most badass version of you. And you're familiar with it, but you might not be using it to its full extent. This is a skill that pretty much every single top performer, peak performer across human experience has mastered. It is called visualization. Visualization is so powerful because we cannot create that which we cannot first imagine. There's a great clip that I shared recently that I came across last year. It is of the mountain from the Game of Thrones. So Hafþór Björnsson or something like that. He's a strongman. He competes in strongman activities. And this clip of him, he is walking down this hotel hallway with his entourage. And just out of nowhere, one of his coaches says some word. It's in Icelandic, so I can't understand it. He says some word, but it sets off a cue, and everybody mobilizes suddenly in this really interesting way. Hafþór just immediately locks in, and he like goes into the zone, like he's about to literally step on stage and lift 1,000 pounds. And his team, one guy jumps out in front of him, gets on his knees, just like he's a judge who's about to call for the lift, right? Like down, up, whatever, right? Like he on his knees, and they're in the hallway of this hotel. It's super random. So the guy's on his knees. He's about to call. Hafþór is there. He's like doing his shoulder thing. He's starting to breathe heavy. The guys behind him, they're like doing their, come on, you got this, that type of thing. And then he just locks in. And you see him go like through the minutia of his routine, from like getting his straps ready on his hands to getting his feet set, then bending over, pretending like he's grabbing the bar. He wraps the one wrap first and he tightens it. Then he wraps the second one. And you can almost see the visual, like the mental bar that he's grabbing there on the floor. It's crazy. It feels like he's actually grabbing something. And you feel like you can see it. It's like so clear in his mind. It almost has a physical presence to it. And he grabs it and you can see him kind of rock it back and forth like it's rolling because he's about to deadlift this thing. And then he goes into it and he lifts it, and then he lets out this big roar as he lifts it. And it was crazy because later that day he goes on to deadlift over 1,000 pounds. And when you watch the video of him in the hallway versus him on the stage with the weight, it's identical. It's freaking identical. It's wild. Now, the thing I think about when I watch something like that is watching somebody who is at the tip-top peak of their game and their ability not just to see the activity that they need to execute in their minds, but to feel it. That's the thing that I think separates people who just are familiar with the idea of visualization as a tool for manifesting the reality that they seek, and those at the top of the game who use this tool as most potent. Because what he got to do there in that hallway is he got all the benefits of lifting 1,000 pounds without having to lift 1,000 pounds, right? So he got the rep without having to actually do the rep. And so here's 3 tips for mastering visualization, for manifesting your dreams to make them a reality. Now, the first one is to see it from multiple angles. For most people, when you visualize an activity in your mind, you probably have like 2 primary ways you look at it. You either have a God's eye view, which is looking down from above and you see yourself doing the thing. Or you see it from first person view, which is like from your own eyes, you see yourself reaching down, grabbing the bar, and doing the motions, right? Those are probably the 2 that you're most familiar with. But there's so many other angles that you could imagine yourself doing the thing. And the more clearly you can see the target, the more angles you can see it from, the more likely you are to hit it, right? And so instead of just seeing it from God's eye view or from your first person view, imagine yourself seeing it from the eyes of your competitor. What do you look like to them when you're coming across the ring? Or imagine it from the perspective of your coach on the sidelines. How do you look from their perspective or from the eyes of the crowd? Right? The more angles you can see it, the more ways you can see it in your mind's eye, the more likely you are to manifest it. So number 2, the second way of mastering visualization is to play with the speed. So most of us, we only have like two time modes that we visualize through. We see normal speed. I'm just doing the thing normally, right? That's pretty straightforward. Seems not surprising why you would do that, right? The second way most of us will do it is slow motion. You can imagine the ball flying at you in slow motion, or you post up on the 3-point line, you take the shot with the buzzer beater and it's in slow motion, right? But again, there's like so many different ways that you can tinker with this. You could try speeding up time. What would it look like if you're on the court and everything's moving at you faster than normal rather than slower than normal? What if you were to play it backwards? What if you were to watch the ball come from the hoop back to your hands? You go backwards through the dribble. You break the defense's ankles. I don't know. But just play with the different speeds in the same way that you do with the different viewpoints. And then imagine yourself in the third person view from the crowd. What do you look like from the crowd going backwards? What's that look like? Right? So you can start to see, like, this isn't just basic visualization. This is like seeing the game from every conceivable angle possible. Number 3 is change the color. Change the color. If you're currently visualizing, people will typically either visualize in color or black and white. You know, and you want to be the master of both. You want to be able to look through your mind's eye and see yourself doing it in color. You want to see all of the colors and the smells. You want to then be able to invert it. You want to be able to then see it in black and white. What if you were to drain all the color out of the scene? What would that look like? What if you were to oversaturate it? What if the greens were greener than normal? What if the browns were browner than normal? The ability to just manipulate all of the variables in a scene helps you dial in and manifest that scene just so much more deeply. Now, one bonus tip is if you really want to become a master of visualization, you can go one step further and you can actually write about it. You can script the fight scene, as I like to call it, where you write out exactly what's going to happen. You play it through, and you use your hand and ink to manifest those thoughts from your brain onto the paper. And you do those 3 or 4, if you use that 4th strategy, you do these things on a regular basis. And I recommend that you visualize every single day your goals that you're trying to seek, right? Most people, they write down their goals once per year, their New Year's resolutions, and they never revisit them. Maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter. I challenge you to review your goals 3 times every single day. And in that review, you visualize, what does it look like to execute? What does it look like to realize that goal? The more you see it, the more likely you are to pull it into reality, because your frequency is what you frequently see. So go see your dreams, and you will not be surprised when eventually they become a reality. That's going to do it for me, guys and gals. We'll see you in the next episode.